we're gonna, because it says some wild and cool stuff in there. And then I have a few little miniature experiments to show you. Um, and let's see what else. Oh, Druid is not here today. She's had some stuff she has to deal with, and I told her we got this. Thursdays are usually pretty low key. But if for any reason my audio goes weird, I know you guys will let me know. So, and in the unlikely event that a troll shows up, of course you guys can gang up on him. So, um, oh my goodness, Kate has rain in the morning. Oh no. Um, yeah, we could probably use some rain too. Although my son mowed the grass yesterday for the first time this season. So today is a cloudless, absolutely beautiful. It's probably in the 60s by now. I know I stepped out to get the mail right before I went live. And I mean, just beautiful blue skies. My allergies are raging still. I've been taking the meds. Today is not as windy. It's been windy. And so today's not as windy. So hopefully like the pollen is just kind of settling and not like smacking me in the face. Although I opened a window for my cats. They are very happy about that, but I might be closing it after the stream because the pollen sifts in and then all of a sudden like every surface in your house is covered with it. So we don't want that. Really quick, one announcement. Just a reminder, I will be here on Monday, this coming Monday, but then I'm going to be gone for like a week and a half. So we will have things over on Quilt Nerding for you to look at if you miss me so much. But it'll be a vacation for all of us. So let me show you some of my little miniatures. Abraham's been busy in the kitchen. So he has made, I bring to you, his blessed pickles. And I made the little tiny fabric thing at the top, the little I don't know, what do you call that when you put a little piece of fabric on top of a jar to make it look a gift? I don't know, what do you call that? Anyway, I put that on there, but there's a teeny tiny label. It says that he pickled these on a Tuesday and they were homemade by Abraham. So I don't know if the camera's gonna pick this up, but this is the little label that came with the kit to make this adorable jar of pickles. And I mean, you see it's even got the mustard seed in there. Look at that. Yeah, jar cover. Yeah, jar lid cover, I guess. Anyway, it's just so precious. From the pantry of Abraham. I wish I could find another one of these. This is one of the kits I got for Christmas, and I don't know. I'll have to look and see. It's from one of the past lines of the mini brand stuff. Abraham also finally got around to baking those cupcakes. He has not decorated them yet, though. He's still got the pistachio frosting and these adorable little I don't know, cupcake decorations. They're little poppies, I guess. But this is so interesting. So these little cupcakes are from the Miniverse Make It Mini from Scratch series. This is like a fairly new series. And there was a little bit of, I guess they had a recall at some point. Like some of the resin that they included in these kits was apparently, not safe for children. Duh. Even like, I mean, the UV resin that they were using, and this is definitely UV resin in here in the little jar. It's a clear UV resin. It came in a little bottle that said vinegar, but it's the same stuff they use like in salons or nail places to do gel nails. So, the fumes and stuff, I mean, you should wear gloves, all that. And I always have when I've worked with this stuff. But anyway, long story short, this Made from Scratch series does not involve UV resin. It involves this weird, I have no idea what it is. It's this 2-part stuff that's like a powder. So it's like the cake mix. I don't know if I have this stuff here on my desk. It's like the cake mix. And then you put in this like, like syrup, like this, in this case, it was chocolate syrup. And you leave it for like an hour and a half and it makes, can you see? It's like squishy. So it's almost like an eraser. I don't know. I don't know what it's made of, but it's really dang cool because they look just like, you baked some cupcakes. In fact, I had to wipe the drips off of the the little silicone pan. So anyway, we will decorate those today if I have time. And right before the tariffs here in the U.S. went into effect, not gonna talk politics, I'm just saying we got a tariff situation. I snagged a few fun things from Temu. I think I had told you guys a while back, I bought a few things on Temu, like to see. I bought a joke gift for my son, which he absolutely loved. And, just a couple little trinkety things. Like I would not go whole hog buying stuff from Temu. There's some weird stuff on Temu, you guys. I took a whole bunch of screenshots. I'll have to show those sometime. Maybe Jill and I can show them on, like, when we do a Stitch and Glitch, like, next month or something, because they are ridiculous. And scary. I found tear gas on Temu. Now, I don't think the tear gas would have crossed U.S. Customs, because they do look at this stuff. But nonetheless, the fact that you could buy NATO grade tear gas on a site that charges like 99 cents for faux potatoes, it's worrisome. But in any event, I got a few little miniatures that were super cheap before that whole thing came down. So Abraham has a few little items that he is gonna decorate with as soon as we get I think he's gonna have a general store, because I have things that are sort of, like that would be sold in a general store. So Abraham's gonna have a general store. But you guys, look at this. They're very light in color, so I know this is not showing up very well, but this is literally a tiny bag of gummy bears. I mean, look at that. And I know they are simply not showing up. They just look like little colored blobs, but I'll try to get like a really detailed picture for my Instagram so you guys can see. This stuff is just so cute. And it's delightful. And today's world has gotten so, like, I don't know, yuck and scary and all the things. I mean, I feel like every time I open my Instagram, it's like, well, you now have like 2 cups of microplastics swimming around in your brain, and that's what's wrong with you. Great! Happy to know this. So I'm leaning into microplastics. This one is a little, like a blue raspberry kind of like jello mold. It wasn't as clear as I thought it would be. I thought this would be a little bit more clear. It's kind of cloudy and opaque. And it came with little, I think they were raspberries and blueberries. And you kind of can't see them. They just sort of make dark blobs. But this dark blob here is actually a stapler. I saw somebody had done this online. And I guess I just need to use a different resin color, like a more clear resin, so you can see it. But if you're familiar with The Office, the television show The Office, one of the characters pranked another character by putting his stapler in Jell-O. I don't know. I think the prank was only on the US version of The Office. I don't remember it being on the UK version of The Office. But nonetheless, it's a prank. I thought it would be fun. Abraham said, Mary Todd, she's a real turd sometimes, and she deserves a prank. Mary Todd is pretty much like a Dwight Schrute character. So she was last seen leaving for her dive to the Mariana Trench. So we hope that she enjoys that. I don't know if you guys remember. I'm sure I mentioned it. Somebody, I think it was Drew, had sent me this Paul Harvey thing that told this whole story about this poor man who did not want to go home to his wife, and she was abusive to their stepson, etc., etc. She was just, all their neighbors knew what a shrew she was, and she yelled at him and basically verbally abused him. And so he never wanted to go home, and he would hang out with his friend, the postmaster. As it turns out, the postmaster was, I can't remember the guy's name, but his best friend was Abraham Lincoln. And I'm like, is this a real story? I keep meaning to go back and double check it. But even if it's not, and I mean, I don't know, we trust Paul Harvey, right? Were his anecdotes, I always feel like his anecdotes were trustworthy. They had some history behind them. So in the event it's not true, I still like the idea of casting Mary Todd as a villain because we love Abraham. And we want him to have a good life here and, have his little general store and not have to worry about her and her nonsense. So that is the miniature update. So yeah, I have my Temu potatoes, and they look like little potatoes. I mean, they're pretty. My lighting here is not good, but you can see it looks like a potato. And he also has some little some cucumbers and some cherry tomatoes. So anyway, little delightful things just to make Cake's day better on the days that I can't spend with you guys, because you guys always make my day better. All right. How about we get to some miniatures that are not on Cake's desk? So let me pull up some things. Make sure I'm in my own accounts. I realize that I sometimes am in the Quilt Nerding account. So, okay. So Robin says that fabric used to cover jar lids is often called a jar cover cloth, jar topper. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah. A jar topper, a jam jar topper, canning lid cover. Yeah. I feel like everything that my one grandmother ever canned always had some type of little topper on it. My other grandmother, her canning, she had one of those, like, I don't know what you call them, like a grease pencil or a crayon kind of thing, and she would just write a date on it. So, all right. Why don't we start with... Let's start with the Rijksmuseum, because their stuff is so cool. And then I have, you know what? Before we get to the miniatures, I did want to show you guys, there is a show coming up. I learned about this last night. Was it last night? Yeah. On the Baltimore album China Marker. Thank you, Kate. You guys always know the words and the names of things that I just can't. But, and Kate, if you don't know about this, listen up. You're going to love this. The Berkeley Art Museum, right? Berkeley Art Museum. It's BAMPFA, BAMPFA. It's like that last part of it is like film something. But it's Berkeley Art Museum or Berkeley Art Museum. They will have a show called Routed West, 20th Century African American Quilts in California, June 8th to November 30th of this year. Two of my colleagues, Julie Silber, you guys have probably heard us talk about Julie Silber. She is very, we'll go to, I'm assuming, yeah, yeah, I know that's pretty close to you. So Julie Silber, best known probably, she was the curator of the Esprit quilt collection. So all of those fantastic Amish quilts and other types of quilts that the Tompkins collected, it was Doug Tompkins was the primary collector. She curated that collection, and now that most of those quilts are back in Lancaster, interestingly enough, there's a little bit of, I don't want to say it's not a scandal or anything, but they're holding those quilts very close to the vest. We had been hoping to be able, and I say we, me and Jill, had been hoping to go to a public quilt turning. Our friend was involved and was planning a public quilt turning that just anybody could sign up for. But apparently the museum that has them, for whatever reason, they have decided they want to hold them close and only show them to groups. So, like guilds. And I don't know what the thought process is. I think they don't, my guess is they don't want to just deal with the general public taking payment and all that stuff, which I gotta be honest, that's a bad reason. You could automate all of that stuff and it's not, that big of a lift, but they have been doing the quilt turnings for guilds. So hopefully, fingers crossed, one of our local groups, and I'm thinking the Baltimore Applique Society, because I feel like there's enough of us kind of here on the East Coast. It's an international group. Lots of people belong from all over the world. But there's enough of us concentrated here in the mid-Atlantic that I'm hoping we can kind of do a field trip up to Lancaster. So hopefully we'll get to see those quilts. But anyway, long story. Circling back to Julie Silber, she and my colleague Donna Richardson, who lives, I think she's either in Northern California or Washington State. They have worked on this. Helped the curator basically on identifying some of the information on these quilts. These quilts, for the most part, I believe, and I'm looking here. Let me share my screen so you guys can see. These quilts are from the collection of Eli Leon. He died, I can't remember if it was during the pandemic or right before, but his massive collection, this living trust, he had collected all of these African American quilts. I don't know how many of them. I think of a large percentage of them he did have documented. So when he would acquire a quilt, say from a family or maybe even directly from the quilt maker themselves, he would carefully document. So this is Eli Leon, like, arguably had the biggest and finest collection of African American made quilts that are well documented. I think that's safe to say. I have one book of his that was a catalog of a show he did. There was some questionable things that he had to say, kind of along the lines of the stuff that was in not Underground Railroad, but some of the stuff that was in Hidden in Plain Sight was just kind of problematic. But nonetheless, he was a white man, but his work in this area is, I think it's very important, and I think there's lots of people that would agree with me. So anyway, this show will be from June to November. I've already said I'm going to start jingling my little can to try to raise some money for a plane ticket up to Northern California, because my sister-in-law lives out there and I would have a place to stay. So, yeah, I really want to go see this. And worst case, I heard that Julie had said there's going to be a catalog. She's already, I guess, seen some of the catalog. So, again, fingers crossed we can get a hold of that. And yeah, this is going to be a really great show, I think. So put that on your calendar if you live in Northern California or can make it to Northern California at some point over the summer and fall. All right, on to the miniatures. So the Rijksmuseum, let's see, I think I had pulled up, let me go back here. I had this up for too long. Okay, let's search. Because they have, as you may have noticed the other day when Bisbee sent us this information, there's multiple dollhouses, and I mean, I guess these are 4 different ones, I think. Yeah, these two look very similar, but anyway, these are what's in their collection. And not only do they have the dollhouse cabinets shown, they also have a whole, let's see, not available digitally. Okay, let's look at this one. They have all of the little objects inside the dollhouse where you can look at it. So see if I can get, well, now, oh, this one's like a painting. Okay. This was a painting that was made of that other one. Holy Moses, I didn't realize that. You guys, not only did they have... That's why this looks like that. You can see they're similar because it's a painting. Oh my gosh. Look, okay. So this is interesting. I guess at one time, this may have had some type of finials on the top of it, and it doesn't seem to have that now. And it also looks like it had some type of cover. This almost looks like bed hangings that were on it. So they must have had, like, been able to pull curtains around it, maybe to shade the front. That's wild. All right, let's see if we can... Okay, this is going to really irritate me if I can't get to the miniatures. Let's see. collections. The other great thing about the Rijksmuseum is although stuff is in, where is the Rijksmuseum? Is that in the Netherlands? God, I'm terrible. Although, you know, all of this stuff is in the local language, you could translate, and the translations are really good. So, this is irritating me now. I'm not gonna be able to find this. Okay, so let's see. Let's do miniatures. Miniatures. Okay, so these are all miniature paintings. Oh my goodness, look. Okay, so these are some of the dollhouse furniture in here. I looked at this the other day. Okay, so 1800s, they loved shellcraft. And I think even shellcraft even goes back into the 18th century. But ladies could read magazines or like publications and learn how to do shellcraft. And some of them it was just a matter of like covering a thing with shells, or sometimes it was just collecting shells. There are some amazing miniatures. There's one actually in Pennsylvania that is a little house, like a little diorama, and it is all made of shells. And in fact, there's one shell in there they have identified as this like rare shellfish that is found somewhere, like I want to say it's like off the tip of like the like down at the bottom of South America, like off the tip of South America. And it's like, how would a person who lived in Pennsylvania, you know, this woman, have acquired this thing? And, you know, they kind of, they don't really know, but they sort of researched and, you know, they knew that this shell trade was really big. You know, when you started to have these like cross-continental trade routes, and ships would maybe be in port at places where they could just, yeah, sailors, exactly. They could get shells. They were very popular. They would scoop up tons of shells and they would bring them back to various ports. And yeah, so there was this whole economy around getting these rare shells, which is so interesting. I mean, I remember as a kid, like people collecting shells, kind of like they collect stamps. I guess people still do that. I don't know. I know here in the US, many beaches don't have like shells like they did. You know, and this is from dredging and all kinds of other stuff that has, you know, altered coastlines and stuff. I know Sanibel Island in Florida, right off the coast of Florida, they used to be a great place to go and search for shells and beach glass and all that stuff. And I guess it's just because of the way the currents and, you know, they're subject to hurricanes and all that stuff, and how things there in the sea get, you know, churned up and deposited in these places. So anyway, long story again, but this is what that's depicting. It's like a shell collection. But I mean, look at this thing. It's a teeny little cabinet. Okay, this is one where I know the translation. There we go. So this is an art cabinet filled with shells made of light wood, black lacquered and painted in gold and red, which is an East Indian lacquer imitation. Plain back base with a drawer on 4 baluster legs, which are hollow / triangular in cross section. Legs connected by a hollow curved cross that has remained unpainted on the underwood and has a black drawing on the cross leg. Drawer red on the inside with gold edges. The top is fixed to the base. The side walls and doors are hollow curved. So, I mean, look at that. And not only the fact that they made this itty bitty piece of furniture, but that, look, there's all of these teeny shells. Like they found the teeniest varieties of all of these shells to put in there. I mean, that in itself is, and this is just one little piece of furniture from that dollhouse. I mean, come on. Oh, look at that. So let's see. Maybe let's try dollhouse miniatures. Like maybe that will. Nah. Okay, this is irritating because I had a whole page the other day. I don't know. These are not doing anything. Not much bigger than 11 inches. Yeah. Yep. Let's see. What's on? Collection stories. Nah. Wish Bisbee was here. She'd have the link. Let's see. Go in here. Search related artworks. Let's see. Maybe it's in here. Yes, here we go. Look at this. A little bed with bed hangings and these little finials and junk on top. I mean, gosh. A little basket of, I don't know, coal. I mean, look at these things. Look at all the little people. Look at this. It is a baby in some kind of like walker. They made these. They made walkers in the Victorian era. This is not a modern invention. They had things for babies to perambulate in. And I also have read, you two may have read this, that, and this is not just the 1800s, but I think way back, they would put these little helmets on babies. They were like little caps that had like padding in them. Some of them were kind of quilted. And so if the baby fell over, knocked its head, it had like a little helmet on. And that's what this looks like to me. Maybe it's just a hat, but to me, this looks like a baby that is in a walker type contraption with a little like helmet hat to keep it from knocking its head around. I mean, how delightful. I mean, look at these teeny things. These little cabinets are so detailed, so fantastic looking. An olive wood and ebony cabinet. 1676. This is just insane. I mean, this stuff is, you could see like the little turned things here. And this little, probably brass, I guess, little fittings. I mean, this is the kind of stuff they don't even make nice furniture for full-size people like this anymore. I mean, look at this. It's like a little jar of something. Look at that. It looked like it had something in it. And it was sealed up with this little, looks like leather almost. And then string. I mean, they did seal jars with, like, I don't know, what, pig's bladders and things like that. All of these little things. Is that a jar of pickles? Look at that. That is a tiny jar of something. Storage jar of clear green glass, cylindrical, with a slightly inserted sole. Okay, that did whatever that means. That did not translate well. Wide neck ribbon construction, closed by means of a piece of pink leather wound with rope, jars filled with cloves. Aw, and I bet it still smells nice after like 300 years. What else is in here? I mean, you could go on all day looking at this stuff. Look at all these little jars. I don't feel so special anymore with Abraham's little pickle jar. Look at all of this stuff. Oh my goodness. I mean, I want to look at every single one of them individually, but I certainly don't have time for that. What is this? This looks like a little glass trifle bowl with unclear filling. Round container with unclear filling. Solid black ribbed container. I mean, to me, this looks like it was actually some type of, I don't know, dessert. I almost don't think that this is because look at this under the underside. That looks almost like it's supposed to be some sort of frill. Fascinating. Maybe there's a stapler hidden inside it. Oh, goodness. All right. We may have to come back to this one. Time is rushing forward. Oh, look at this chair. I mean, these things were clearly made, as accurately as they could to the real deal. I mean, look at this little piece of textile. Look at that. Oh my goodness. This is damask with a pebble pattern. 1600 to 1699. Oh my gosh. I mean, that is wild. That is an incredible piece of textile. All right, what's going on here? Okay. All right, one more thing, and then we'll move on. Oh, goodness. So many cool things. I'm looking for a textile. Oh, look at this guy. Let's see. We've got all these little things. Maybe looking for an interesting. It looks like a lot of the textiles were sort of just linens. I don't see quilts. Oh, here we go. Let's look at this. Here's a quilt. This looks like block printed chintz, right? So blanket made of chintz, painted with a wavy floral vine pattern, circa 1676. So made of chintz, painted with a blue background with circles, trimmed with a border of cream-colored silk and lined with yellow silk. The blanket is quilted in rectangles. Oh, look at it. I guess there doesn't look like there's any way to see the other side of it. But we can zoom out. Okay, let's move on to another one. All right, so this one, I probably should have marked this as adult themes, but here's your trigger warning. The next thing we're going to look at are murder houses. And the artist is somebody I have followed for a very, very long time. I have been to this gallery that we're seeing right here, the Ancho Gallery in New Orleans. Chris Ancho she was a fiber artist. She's a textile artist. I first discovered her at the American Visionary Art Museum here in Baltimore. I used to volunteer there. And she had a piece there. It was almost like a giant book made out of these stitched pages. And I don't know, like they were quilts, sort of. They were machine applique. They're very folk arty looking. She would do things that were like of famous people, like Elvis, James Brown, that kind of thing. Like other musical artists. Some things are just funny, they were just clever. But then she started moving into other different directions. She does a lot with mixed media. For a while she would get these like taxidermy deer heads, from discarded taxidermy, I guess. And she would make these like hoods, sort of like balaclavas for these deer, but they were made of silk and they were heavily embroidered and like with butterflies and plants and things, and they were just beautiful but odd, like just very strange. And then she did like kind of these little miniatures that were they were some kind of peril series. Like they were these like little glass, almost like jars kind of, they would have a little scene in it. And some of it, was mixed media. So sometimes, there would be textiles involved, and there are textiles involved in what she's doing here. But it's like this vast departure in her artistic style and what she's focused on. And I think that's fascinating when artists, have like this really, like giant body of work based on like something that's very recognizable. And then they move in this other direction. And it's so, so very interesting. So what she's doing is making 1/12 scale doll houses depicting gruesome murders. And this one happens to be the Clutter family, which is from In Cold Blood, Truman Capote. And this is one of like a dozen of these maybe she's made, maybe not that many. But here in her gallery, you can see there's other artists' work in there. So it's not just her, but a good deal of the work in there is also kind of her work as well. She represents herself. I love that. What better way to, kind of get a handle on the world of art and dealing is just to become an art dealer for yourself. I love that. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of videos. I just went to the gallery and grabbed this because this will be quick and easy for us. But if you want to search her, and if this is interesting to you, then look on YouTube. There's a ton of videos. She shows like all kinds of different views of these projects, and she talks about them. And she's looking at crime scene photos because they're supposed to be pretty accurate. So. And to me, I mean, this is awful, but this is what happened to these people. she shows what was happening there. Now, the Clutter family murder was in the 50s. I think it was 1959, I think. So I think some of the things she's got in here are not super, super accurate. Like, I don't know that Lay's potato chips were necessarily like a thing back then, but I think generally what she's tried to put together is sort of, as accurate as possible. So like the fact that there was food out and food spilled and chairs turned over and all that kind of stuff, I think that's what she's trying to accomplish here. And I think she's done a pretty good job, even though this is like pretty horrific subject matter. Um, yeah. I don't necessarily know what else to say about these other than they're really fascinating. Um, the work that's gone into this, and I'd have to look at crime scene photos side by side to see like how much artistic license she took, and then what is a more faithful recreation. Um, oh, so Lays were around in 1932. Okay, my bad. So maybe the Clutters did have a package of Lays on the floor and she was able to recreate this. I don't know. That's pretty wild. So maybe this is 100. I mean, it's hard to see. You've got Tropicana and Rice Krispies. To me, those look a little bit more modern packaging, but I mean, who knows? I stand corrected. um, okay, this one's pretty horrible. This was, I think, one of the children or teenage child. And it's interesting. There's pictures of presidents, I've noticed. I don't know if the Clutter family had a lot of pictures of presidents, but you can see, let's see, was that John Adams or Washington? I'm not sure who it was in the kitchen. And then here in the living room, we've got Lincoln. And these other ones look like some sort of antique-y looking photos. But anyway, yeah, I don't know what else to say about these other than they are fascinating. I I mean, her purpose is purely artistic here, and they're just interesting. I mean, this is coming from a craftsmanship, I think, a craftsmanship stance. Um, and I guess just in the wider sort of discussion about these recreations, and I'm going to show you something in a minute that you've probably heard of, but that will shed some more light on these. Also, in this picture, I just want to point out, you can see back here, I am not 100% positive that this is her work, but this looks very much like her work. Chapacana 1947, Rice Krispies 1928. Okay, I knew that those were older brands. So, I mean, she's representing stuff that could definitely fit in this house. But anyway, so you could see these sort of caricature-like pictures. That's her style when she was working in fabric, and I think she did some paintings too. But these, I could almost bet these are hers, and they are portraits that are done like in felted wool and stitched. So, all right. So moving along. This is Frances Glessner Lee's work, and at first glance, looks a lot like what Chris Ancho is doing. Mixed media. There are these little bedrooms. You can see there's dolls depicting corpses. But what Frances Glessner Lee was doing was creating crime scenes specifically for investigators to study. This was her hobby, but this was something that she was a wealthier woman, and I've read the book, the Nutshell. Let's see, it's called Nutshell Studies. It was such a fascinating book. It really went into. I bought it because I thought there were going to be a lot more pictures of the little dioramas, and there are, but they weren't as detailed and in color as I had hoped and expected. However, the story about her, she created these things, and she saw this need for detectives to be able to examine crime scenes in better, and to improve their training. So basically, she created the center of crime scene investigation. And these little dioramas, their purpose was for homicide forensic training, homicide investigation. These actually reside in Baltimore, and I have never actually gone to see them. They are in, I want to say it's like the office of the Baltimore City, like the morgue. Like I don't, it's not the morgue, but it's like it's one of the forensic, they might actually say in this piece here, but they do exist here in Baltimore. Now, this show was at the Renwick, and okay, so it's the office of the chief medical examiner of Baltimore. So that's where they're still used, right? Still used. And so they talk about, like, she created all of these very, detail. Knitting tiny stockings by hand with straight pins, hand rolling tiny tobacco filled cigarettes and burning the ends because, like, one crime scene might have had like cigarette butts where there shouldn't have been cigarette butts. Writing tiny letters, creating working locks. This is like just insane what this woman did. And there are videos. This is on the Smithsonian American Art Museum website. I'll put this in the. Looks like there were 2 different blog posts about this. So anyway, you can go and look at these again if it's something you're interested in. There's significantly less blood in these, I think, than there are in Chris Ancho's versions. And I think that she used, Glessner Lee used the like existing dolls. She didn't actually create the dolls. And I think some of what she has in here is also existing furniture, like dollhouse furniture and like doll clothing and things that she used. So she didn't necessarily fabricate everything. And I don't think that Chris Ancho has either. I think that, it's a little bit of fabrication, a little bit of like what they can find that fits. So anyway, these are just so cool and so fascinating. So let me put that link in. All right. Boo hiss. Hold on a minute. Even though I have been logging into all the things, for some reason I can't get links to work. Okay, so there's that link. And let me give you guys this other one. The Ancho Gallery. If you want to look at that. I know some of you are probably going to be like, no thanks, Stephanie. I don't want to look at murder houses. But I suspect there are true crime aficionados in my circle of friends. So I think that somebody will be interested. Okay. So yes, Frances Glessner Lee. Now, next, I have some fun things on Instagram that I found. People that I follow. Now, you might follow this person, and I'm not logged in right now, so that's why it says, but I do follow her. Her name is Anne Marie. Her handle is LTW Miniatures, and she makes quilts, as well as other little doodads, for lack of better, other little miniature things. So there is her link. But look at this. And I think she sells this stuff. You could see, little quilts. Some of her quilts are pretty impressive. This is just kind of a one patch, but, she's done these things with hexes. I think she's woven things. You could see her making 1/6 inch hexagons. My gosh. And then she shows some of her collections. Now, I think, okay, so she's in the UK. Oh, look at this one. Look at this. These are very fine quilts she's making. And she's showing her process. She's got patterns, all kinds of things. These are great. She is fantastic. Now, next, I have some fun things on Instagram that I found. People that I follow. Now, you might follow this person, and I'm not logged in right now, so that's why it says, but I do follow her. the next one is Miss Sadie. And I think she is, let's see, does it say? She's in Germany. And I think she also sells stuff. Oh, Anne Marie sells kits too. Okay. I haven't, it's been a while since I've been, because I had been to her, I can't remember if it's an Etsy or it's like a regular site. I had seen her things, and I knew that she sold stuff, but I didn't realize there were kits too. So this woman is doing primarily crochet. She is crocheting with thread. I mean, look at this. And she's making these little granny square Afghans. She makes these little purses. I think these are cross stitch, these little pillows. I mean, look at this stuff. Like, I mean, how precious. And she just, it's all crochet. I don't think, aside from these little pillows, I don't think she's doing any other form of textile work. But nonetheless, what she's doing is just stunning. And the patience and the eyesight, you guys, I mean, just amazing. So she's fun. And then I found, this one's not a miniature site. This is actually a vintage jewelry, but I could not help but show you this. I mean, look at that. So first of all, I am a sucker for any type of little box. And I mean, look at that teeny little brass hook and eye on it. And then this little thing, I mean, it's just a charm, I guess, put it on a chain or a ribbon. And the fact that it's got that little locket, and you can put anything in there. Oh, just fantastic. So this is Vintique jewelry. Let me provide their link. And I mean, she's got lots of like really beautiful things as well, but that little locket just slayed me. Okay, now here's another one. You guys, there are so many like museums and things. So this one's called the Mini Time Machine Museum of Miniatures. Thought I looked yesterday, see where this is. Okay, it's in Tucson. This one's in Tucson, Arizona. And they're doing like shows of things. So this is Tiny Tributes by Rudy Flores and Teresa Estrella. These appear to me to be like little carvings of, possibly real people. Let's see what they have to say. Tiny Tributes, a community collective of figures inspired by army men toys. So I guess that's why they're green, just like little army men. And it looks like they're possibly 3D printed, or they might be castings. But I think these are 3D prints. Yeah. So there was a catalog. Yeah. Looks like this is... Oh my goodness. So you can be scanned to have your likeness made. This is interesting. And yeah, you can, I guess, let's see, scanning session to have a 3D printed tiny tribute made in your likeness included in the exhibition and receive an additional copy for you to keep. So you're going to get your little clamshell display case and everything. That is so cool. It sounds like you actually have to go to be in Tucson for this, but they'll be on display until summer of 2025. So it looks like they're still there. That is amazing. I love that. I mean, how cool. So this is for they exist for the preservation and advancement of art miniatures for all. And I really did not look through here much because I like to discover these things. So, oh my God, look at this. Little tiny signs. So this one is upcoming. Jorge Ruiz. looks like he is making all kinds of different signs. Oh, this is a storefront. Oh my goodness. So this appears to be maybe, oh, look at that. Huh. So this is like old signs of things. Sorry that I'm zipping through this scroll, but they appear to be old signs and storefronts, and maybe these are things that are were popular or maybe not around anymore. I don't know. Where's this one? Disappointing New Yorker since 1998. Rocco's Pizzeria, Chicago Pizzeria. I love that. So he says we don't often stop to contemplate how they have survived for years and even decades with their visible scars, multiple coats of paint, and amateurish but ingenious solutions to structural problems. I believe these are extensions of the people that inhabit them, and it tells a story that is inseparable from the users, as they have both become tangled into one another. Very interesting. This looks like a lot of really cool stuff here. They also, I know they do a summer camp. I think this is the one that does the summer camp. Oh, why is that link not working? Okay, here's the summer camp for kids. Oh my gosh, I wish I was 14 or younger. I would love to go and like do things in this museum. Stages of Imagination, the iconic Broadway designs of David Corns. Looks like that's just going to be up very briefly. It's coming down soon. Oh gosh, they have all these events. Minis and Sip, craft a mini cactus patio scene while you drink wine. Ah, I love it. So anyway, this seems like a really fun place. I have not been to Tucson in a very long time, but this would definitely be a destination next time I go. Okay, this I found just doing a search. This is an account on Medium, which is a writing kind of a journalistic type of site. This account is called Tourmaline, and it's the ultimate list of miniature exhibits and museums, 50 plus US locations. And I just started scrolling through this, so they've got the mini time machine. Apparently there's another miniature in Arizona, the Thorn Miniature Rooms. Now I know there was not a listing for Maryland, and I'm assuming they did not include the Nutshell series because it's not necessarily open to the public. Like, that's not something that you can just, like, say, call up the chief medical examiner's office and say, hey, I'm stopping by to see the miniatures. You can only see those by, like, special invitation or when they're out at an exhibit. So I'm guessing that's why that one's not listed in here. But chances are there is a state near you that has some type of interesting thing. Denver Museum of Miniatures, Dolls, and Toys. Yes, please. World's largest, littlest big top at the Ringling Museum in Florida. A whimsical fairy garden in Georgia. Oh my gosh. Some of these are probably your standard like train museum kind of thing, train gardens, but even those are interesting when you look at like all the itty bitty things that people make for train gardens. Animals of the world in miniature. So many major fine arts museums also have miniatures. I know the Smithsonian does. Let's see, it looks like Museum of Fine Arts in Boston has something called Court Cupboard. I know, let's see, South Carolina, was it listed on here? Okay, yeah, South Carolina has this 4 doll and dollhouse collection. The Museum of Charleston also has, now it's not huge, but it's a small area of like there's a huge dollhouse, there's dollhouse furniture, children's toys, miniatures, all these things. So I think even if we're not talking about like an entire, museum or thing that you could go to, there's plenty of museums that you can visit, and they do have something interesting. So in DC, this is an old listing, but the Doll's House at the Smithsonian is at the American History Museum. So, yeah, let me share that link. In case you want. What site is this? This is on Medium. It was I just did a search and it came up. And a lot of times on Medium, like people have their writing behind paywalls because it's kind of like journalism. But there are some people that will post things on Medium that are just open to the public, and this one is. So I was excited to find this. This is the Thorn Miniature Rooms at the Art Institute of Chicago. That looks like a picture of an actual big person-sized room. This does not look like a miniature to me, but apparently it is. I mean, wow. Okay, I have one more thing to show you, but I have to find it first. I was gonna find it earlier, and then I got sidetracked as I was starting the stream, and I just need to locate a video to show you. Let's see. Hopefully the video's in here. Yeah. So I was in a show last year, and my friend Elaine curated the show, and she took a video of the show for me so I can show it to you. This was at the Garrett Museum of Art in Indiana, Garrett, Indiana. And these are all my quilts. They're all, I think the biggest one is probably like maybe like 3.5 inches is the biggest dimension on any of these. Actually, that's a lie. This piece might be 4 inches wide right here. So enjoy. She had boxes, individual galleries set up. There is a little visitor sign-in. This was just a quick, a quick video. I'll play it again, where she just pans around the room. I have pictures that I can show you of the work. I was pretty proud of this set. And I did have some sales from the show. So I can just scroll through here. Okay. There we go. So, that's the back side. This is the back side of all of them. Oh, geez. Okay. So this is one of the bigger pieces. So you can imagine these are bread clips. So imagine three bread clips side by side, and then add in a little bit of space. Oh, thanks, Kate. That's the back. When this you see Remember Me, this was kind of like a faux memorial. It wasn't really necessarily devoted to anyone in particular. I've made a number of quilts where, and they're all small pieces, but where I use sort of found objects and I encapsulate them. So this actually has a very thin piece of vinyl on top of it to hold it in place. Sometimes I stitch them down. Sometimes it's just covered by the vinyl that holds it in place. And then I stitch the vinyl gets stitched down to like a backing, and typically the backing is felt, and then I stitch the felt down to the quilt. So that's what you're seeing here. And then this is just an applique piece. So as I was making these, some of them started to look like faces, and I was like, I'm going to lean into that. So that's what this one is. You can see it's kind of got like hair and eyelashes and sort of eyes, nose, mouth kind of look to it, and a beard. Looking at my husband while I was doing this, I was like, this little thing needs a beard. This is another one with where I did stitch down the items. And this is hand-dyed fabric on the backing. I love loose rhinestones. I have, a few years ago, gosh, it was probably early pandemic, I bought this enormous sack of stuff on eBay, and it was ridiculously cheap. It was like $10 maybe for this bag. It was probably a gallon-sized freezer bag, like bulging of stuff. And it was from a woman that she would buy up buttons, and she'd sort them out, wash them, do all the things, and like she was selling sets of buttons that were matched together and nice, and some of them were antique and all that. Well, she had all this junk that would come out of these button hoards that she was buying, like loose rhinestones that fall out of buttons, and costume jewelry, and just the kind of junk that ends up in a button box. To me, that is treasure. To her, it was like, I can't do anything with this stuff. I can't sell it. So she just sold it and it was the most wonderful thing I've ever run into. And it was, and some of the things in there I found to be valuable. I mean, I found jet beads from, Victorian era. Of course, gobs and gobs of rhinestones, like this is just a bone, ring that would have been used for needlework, but it is bone. It's not plastic. So to me, all of these little doodads were valuable, and they told a story. Even if we don't know the people, we could kind of put them together and come up with a story. So that was kind of the intent of this whole series. And I still make this stuff. I made this series specifically for this show, but I have probably a dozen other pieces that are either finished or in progress that involve this kind of stuff. They're bigger. I would say most of them are probably like 8x8, 10x10. This might be one of my favorite, Mrs. James Williams. A name, in all this stuff. I don't think this was not out of that big bundle of button box discards, but somewhere along the line, I had like a mile of this woman's name tape. And I don't know, was she sewing it into her clothing? I mean, you always call these camp labels because kids would, moms would buy kids' names on tape and sew them into their clothing. You can just use a non-washable marker, like a Sharpie. But some people would spring for these tapes, or maybe she was putting it on her needlework. Maybe she put her name on. I don't know, but she apparently bought a lot of it and didn't use much of it, because I have like a mile of it, and I thought this was kind of interesting. This is another one of the faces. I was kind of messing around. It's Nevermore. And this was the first one I did when I was like, oh, these things are starting to look like faces. And so this was the first guy I did. A little bit of needle lace here at the top, then that makes a fringe, and this is the large piece. So the Garrett Museum, their goal with the show was to have a small, a little gallery of of miniature versions of our artwork, and then one larger piece. And the larger piece had to fit certain dimensions. I want to say, like, they didn't want anything that was going to be more than like 20 inches. It was still supposed to be a small piece. There were numerous painters and printmakers that were in the show. And so, they all had like, kind of your standard. This piece I had started at the time, and I was like, okay, I'm going to finish this piece specifically for the show because it's, I want to say it's like 18 by 13. So it's still pretty small, but I feel like this one tells a story. This one's called Flotsam and Jetsam. That was kind of the whole series. But fragments, minutia, detritus, scraps, like that. They're this sort of wisps. It sort of tells a story about like what I think is this family that all of these things came from. And and you've got some information here to sort of put together a narrative if you so choose. So that is the end of my miniature artwork. It's actually the second miniature show I've done. Like I said, my friend Elaine is very involved in the world of miniature galleries, and Thimble Gallery, I think, is one, and that's in Australia. She is the Angelica Kaufman Gallery, is her gallery. The Angelica Kaufman consists, I want to say she now has like more than a dozen little gallery spaces. She started off literally with like almost like a shoebox kind of things that she would construct out of wood. And I think she had an actual little dollhouse was one of them. But she started creating these, artworks and soliciting people, artists that wanted to do these little shows. And so she was really just, showing people online, on her website and on her Instagram. And then she started getting her, displays into other museums. I know she's done some displays in some libraries around Chicago. She lives in Illinois. And then in Indiana, the Garrett Museum. So very cool. I mean, it's an interesting kind of direction to go with miniatures versus very large pieces of work. I feel like there's sometimes in the world of fine art, there's this push to go bigger and bigger and bigger. And bigger's not always better. Bigger is not affordable. The bigger piece of artwork is, the more expensive it's going to be. Space is always limited in, whether it's in your home to display or, your space to make it or whatever. And, I don't know. I just have always been like really fascinated by tiny things and miniatures. I mean, you guys know this about me. It's like, I'm delighted by anything that's small. And in fact, one of the reasons why, when I was in college, when I was in art school, I switched from sculpture to jewelry or metalsmithing, because in sculpture, I was tasked to make big things, and the small things I wanted to construct didn't always read well in our critiques. Like everybody in our gallery room, when we would do critiques, would have like all these big pieces welded, constructed out of wood, and I would have these smaller items. And when I tried to work big, it did not always work out for me. And I just kind of struggled with filling the space when I made something big. So I like to go the other direction and go very detailed and get into the weeds with the tiny stuff. So anyway, the proclivities of cake. So next up, we have a half of a chapter to read, and we'll see. I think that's probably going to do it for today, getting through this chapter. Lots more pictures from the 20s. So this is chapter 6 or 7, I think. Let's see. Yes, chapter 7, the post-war sexless period, 1916 to 1926. And as a reminder, we are reading From Hoopskirts to Nudity by Carrie Hall. This was written in 1936, or 1938, I'm sorry. 1938 was when it was published, actually. I think she was writing from 1936, because she has the decade split up by sixes, so it's 1916 to 1926. So I think that's where she was going with that when she was writing, and then it got published in 38. So we got about halfway through this period, this chapter, because it was a big one. And I think we're gonna move into. So as you may remember, there was a lot of talk about these horribly short skirts that showed off ankles. Ugh. God forbid, you're gonna show off your cankle instead of your sweet the tips of your feet, which are very dainty looking. As soon as you raise that skirt, oh dear God, we can see your ankles and your badly shaped legs. And if I remember, I can't remember if it was Druid or Robin found her Carrie Hall's birth and death dates, and I want to say she died in the late 50s. So she never got to see the miniskirt. And I think that she either would have been, well, she would have either dropped out on the spot or she would have been very harsh. She does not sound like the kind of woman that really appreciated short skirts. I think she's really given us the idea that she likes, the buttoned up look. So moving along, let's dive back into the chapter. So we had left off with a Shakespeare quote, so I will say that again because I thought it was obnoxious. So it says, Shakespeare, in his own inimitable way, has said, "It is the lesser blot modesty finds, women to change their shapes than men their minds." So basically, women in fashion change faster than men change their minds, and I hate you, Shakespeare. Okay, so diving back in. When sports of all sorts became the major activity of the American people, it was necessary for each particular kind to have its own special costume. Oh, Robin, yes. Hot pants and go-go boots. Heck yeah. Well, and how about, just low-rise jeans? People wearing their pajamas to the grocery store? Carrie Hall would just be very disappointed in us. So we need to have our own special costume for sports, which gave designers an opportunity to express their idea of what was fit and proper for the glorification of a great American institution. The effect on fashions in general was tremendous, but it had no effect upon the seasonableness or reasonableness of women's apparel. Okay, Carrie Hall. Since it is apparent that women do not dress for reasons which appear reasonable, what is the deciding factor in the great game of costuming capricious woman? Good Lord, Carrie Hall, it seems like you're... Are you writing for the Vatican? What the heck? Is it to enhance her beauty? The lines of beauty are eternal, but women's lines change from season to season at the behest of fashion. A resume of any decade of fashions will show that beauty, as delineated by the different types of costume worn, was not the deciding factor. Reason and beauty both having failed in the final test, just what does govern women's dressing? Some men are egotistical enough to think that in this matter their likes and dislikes are given due consideration. And there are men who frankly admit that they enjoy and admire the eccentricities of costume indulged in by women. So it seems like she's alluding to the fact that men are egotistical enough to think that fashion has to do with them. It does. If it wasn't for high heels creating a sexiness about women, do you think women would wear high heels? I think there's women today that wear high heels no matter what because it gives them height. It gives them like a bearing. But the high heels in the first place, I think, are very designed by men in the beginning, at least, and really pushed by men. So I don't know. I don't know what Carrie Hall's getting at here. Let's keep going. If the truth be told, women dress to project their personality. Yeah, because men have a standard, and that's what many women were trying to project. They delight in being the focal point of interest in any crowd, and with foreknowledge of the particular gathering they are to grace, they either imitate the dress of the woman whose social position is a matter of envy, or they make an especial effort to outdo those whom they dislike. Well, yes, this is true. They may intend to dress to attract the admiration of men, but there seems to be an allure about the other woman's gown, especially if the wearer happens to have charm and distinction. Again, it goes back to the fact that, women historically, even today, they even if they don't admit it, they are dressing for men. You think about in the U.S., we often are bothered by other cultures, particularly in the Middle East, say, where women are thoroughly covered up, and the view of their hair or their bodies or even their face is reserved for their husband and women in their life. Men that are not related to them or married to them are not allowed to see them. They're not allowed to be in public being seen. And I mean, some of it is religious and some of it is just cultural. As a society that really values individuality, I think Americans often look at that and we're like, oh my God, I would never wear a burqa. But also if you think about the fact that, you're wearing something that is going to cover up any kind of individuality that the world would see, but that what you do wear underneath is specifically for those in your family and in your close social group, like, your friends. It puts a different spin on expression, I think, an expression of, the body and clothing. I do know women that live in places like, Iran and Afghanistan, particularly women that live in cities and, might want to dress a little more like upscale or fancier. When they go to, obviously they're walking around outside, they have, hijab or burqas, very covered up. But when they go inside and they're with their girlfriends, the coverings come off and they have full makeup. They have their hair done. They have clothing that, we would be, in awe of, inspired by. And that's very interesting to me. I feel like if I, God forbid, was forced to wear something that covered me from head to toe, I wouldn't dress any better than this underneath. Like, why bother to look fancy underneath if you're just going to wear, like, a bag over you? But, that desire is, to look a certain way, and really dressing for yourself and dressing for your loved ones is interesting. It's who you're being seen by, very, very different cultural expectations. So, I've given thought to that, and I think that is interesting. By the way, you guys see this? This was a pricey t-shirt. I almost didn't get it, but I could not resist. I mean, come on. Museum nerd. I got it at the International Quilt Museum. I would assume other museums have picked this stuff up, so to be on the lookout for it. All right. Some men are always outraged by the foolishness of the fair sex. And yet, do not men dominate the designing and manipulating of women's fashions? Yes, exactly. Nearly all standards of feminine beauty have been created by men. What I'm saying, Carrie, exactly. The present type of athletic woman, as compared with the Gibson girl of the gay 90s, has been proclaimed by men artists all the way from magazine covers to designs for women's clothes. When women adopt these fashions designed by men, designers lead them on to try even more eccentric designs in their effort to satisfy the demand for novelty. In this age of innumerable health cults and fads, when so much stress is being placed upon that vital principle of happiness, health, the only effect it has had on fashion trends is one of perverse influence, the dieting fad to reduce. Women's body seems to be the last consideration when fashions are being considered, for it is immune to the changes of temperature when it is the whim of fashion to slash the bodice down the back to the waistline, or the skirt to the knee, or the sleeve from shoulder to wrist. Women seem inured to wear almost no clothes in the evening in rooms where the temperature is adjusted to the comfort of men fully clothed, as she is inured to wearing a skirt up to her knees and chiffon hose on a day when the thermometer registers 10 degrees below zero, and as she is inured to wearing no underwear in midwinter just because fashion so decrees. Yeah, that's been going on forever. I mean, if we look at the court fashions of, late 1700s, I mean, you literally had women with complete décolletage exposed, in some cases so very low that we had some I'm certain some wardrobe malfunctions. Sleeveless things, shoulderless, strapless kind of outfits, very tight short sleeves. And these were even women that like fully covered up during the daytime, but at night that evening wear becomes a whole lot different. But this is not anything that's new. This has been going on forever, ever since fashion was a thing. And yeah, showing off your legs, even when it's freezing cold, it's a thing. People do it. Although I have to say, I do really adore a leg warmer. I'm all about bringing leg warmers back, not for form and fashion, but for function. If you get cold ankles or cold shins in the winter, put some leg warmers on under your jeans, or, if you just have to run somewhere, throw some leg warmers on over your tights or whatever. Very helpful. Okay. How she can and retain any semblance of health is a mystery only the Sphinx could solve. And the Sphinx, a woman, will not betray her sex. During the reign of the hourglass figure, which, did that ever end? The hourglass figure, when the 18-inch waistline was the correct measure, I don't think that was ever actually for real. Women were stiff and rigid, but with the appearance of the softer, straight front corset, beauty still had form without looking so ramrod-like. Suddenly, fashion to create a flat, uncorseted figure, a boyish form, and all the feminine world became so overnight. This boyish silhouette with slim arms and legs, no bust, and narrow hips was known throughout Europe as the American flapper figure. And we all know what this looks like. Unfortunately, the older woman with full-blown figure, as well as the extreme youth, felt it necessary to follow this slovenly fashion. And the outline of the stylish stout looked very much like nature's charms, running riot without troubling to disguise themselves. All right, Carrie Hall. So essentially you're saying the look was not for fat ladies, but fat ladies wore it. No matter if she was more comfortable in this corsetless state, vanity should have whispered a word of warning. And here's a little poem. I don't know. She doesn't say what this is from. The sleeves I wore at 17 were huge and buckram lined. My corset was a wasp waist type, 3 skirts all trailed behind. It's quite taboo to tell it, but I wore a bustle too. I little knew how I would look in 1922. No corset, though I'm 40 odd, and rank my stylish stout. Skirts to my knees and rolled silk hose I dare not look about. For I may see myself, and then will come the final test. I must be sure at grandma's age that I'll not doff the rest. Okay. After being tolerated for a season or two, this total unrestraint on a woman's figure went into oblivion. The apparently uncorseted figure was desirable, but the absolutely uncorseted mode was scoffed out of existence. Surreptitiously, the woman with the not-so-slender hips smoothed down her gown, realizing that she was beyond the pale of good taste, because fashion had decreed that boyish slenderness and firmness of figure was to be relentlessly demanded from all women who were interested in their appearance. Corset makers saw in this an opportunity to introduce a new type of garment, so they created a typical American production. What do you guys think it was? Both my grandmothers wore them, so I'm sure you could quickly figure this out. It was a combination girdle and hose supporter, which had a boyish form brassiere top and met every demand of the fashions of the period. And I mean, honestly, we're still wearing, like, if you have the full-blown Spanx. Now, Spanx don't have the garters for hosiery, but the shorts that are connected to, like, the bodysuit kind of deal, pretty much the same thing. I love and hate Spanx. I despise having to wear them for any purpose, but when you're wearing a dress and you put some Spanx underneath and it just kind of smooths out everything, it's like a necessary evil, I guess.
Beauty should be the purpose of corsetry, beauty through health. Women learned a definite thing when they went uncorseted. They learned that being slender and having a firm foundation for clothes meant a great deal more than just youth. When the ends of beauty and fashion are better served by wearing a corset, it should be fitted to the wearer's own particular figure and not be a long one, a short one, a tight one, or a loose one. Simply because someone who knows nothing about her needs or requirements says that this model is the latest fashion. And that's good advice. You should always dress to your own body type and you know what, or if you don't know what looks good on you, there's lots of people that can help you figure it out. Corsets have much to do with the comfort or discomfort, as well as with the appearance of the women who wear them, and consequently with their disposition and well-being. For it can be truly said that a corset that fits properly is a blessing, while one that is ill-fitting is a menace to health and the cause of much ill temper. For how can a woman be sweet and gracious when she is being a martyr to fashion? And I can say that, having done some historical costuming, that properly fitted corsets are really no worse than, say, like Spanx and bras and all that kind of stuff. An ill-fitting corset or a corset that's not worn properly is absolute torture. And I think a lot of people, who get some kind of corsety sort of thing for like a Halloween costume or, haven't studied like the reality of historical clothing, will fall into that trap that, corsets are bad, corsets are evil, they broke ribs and displaced organs, etc. That was very uncommon. Certainly there were women that were going for that like ultra wasp waist, but no more necessarily than people today would like really go whole hog into that and achieve it. Most people are just trying to not look dumpy. So, and the corset was really just in a lot of cases it's a bodice, about bodies. It's really just about kind of holding everything in. And I've mentioned this before, but in eras where there were heavy dresses, the corset really saved you. Having worn a quilted petticoat, a bum pad, a bustle, sort of a bum pad, and a fairly heavy, like brocaded embroidered skirt, and pockets underneath, like all of that weight of fabric will be digging into your hips, digging into your waist. But if you have a corset, that little bit of structure, and the bottom of it, as it curves down into your hips, and in some cases would have even tabs on the bottom, depending on what era, all of that sitting on that bit of corset is like saves your body so much pain. So I really think there's a lot of misunderstanding about corsetry, and corsetry is taken on a different meaning in our modern sense. So anyway, I will always be the person to say corsets were not that bad, even though they don't make sense for us to wear today. It is an amazing gamble trying to anticipate the future with a prophet's eye. Cicero said, "In the beginning, the world was so made that certain signs came before certain events. The beginnings of fashion often cast their shadows before. More often, they are a matter of mere caprice. But sometimes they are the result of forethought, patience, perseverance, and philosophy. Fashions do not arbitrarily start from the unknown, but are guided by something suggestive in the trend of current happenings." Guess what she's going to talk about? 1920s. This is a thing I love. In 1923, when the tomb of King Tutankhamun was discovered, the designers worked overtime creating fashions that were a travesty of the robes of ancient Egyptian kings. Now, that's kind of rude. I think that the Egyptophiles, they went whole hog, they went crazy. But I do think that there's some kind of cool stuff that, so I have a cousin who is the inventory control manager. Oh, okay. I'm curious to know, what is it that is censoring you? I feel like there's something censoring you, Robin. I don't know why. Let me see. She's the COO. That was so weird on my end. It looked like it was censoring you. Inmate control manager at Orchard Corset in Wenatchee, Washington. Very cool. Um, Now I'm curious. Like, I'm wondering. Like, I have to look Orchard Corset up. If what like what sort of audience are they serving? Like modern corset wearers, or um, like what sort of corsetry, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Costuming, modern, like I would assume maybe they do all the stuff. There's lingerie corsets, there's bridal corsets, etc. So there's lots of opportunities to wear corsets. Okay, so the King Tut fashions. Hey, B of D. It is nice to see you. Oh, gave us a link. Awesome. Let's, you know what? Let's go here. I think we have time. Now, hiss. Let's see if I can copy this. I know my software has been like a pain in the butt lately. I can hear one of my cats digging at the couch. Okay, okay. So it looks like they have all kinds. Yep. Oh yeah, some of this is fashion stuff. I see. Okay, and some of it like steampunk. Like, okay, so there's some of this. Oh, all right. Oh, okay. So stuff like post surgery compression. That's another thing. You get your tummy tuck. You have to wear a medical corset. That's interesting. So all kinds of corsetry. Yeah, I'm seeing some images here. Okay, yeah. There's some cosplay type stuff. Looks like probably some lingerie and wedding type stuff. Oh, very cool. I always like to learn about new things, new places. All right. So the Egyptophiles. I think some of the cool stuff that came out of like this absolute passion for, King Tut and the tube opening in 1923. I think some of this stuff was kind of cool. And maybe that's coming from my modern eyes. But anyway, so designers worked overtime creating fashions that were a travesty. This was purely a matter of chance, happy or otherwise, according to your view of the results. Expert designers are continually on the alert for ideas from which to create a new fashion trend. Many models are offered, but few are really chosen. If these few should be chosen by the socially elect, such as the acquisitiveness of human nature, that the manufacturers flood the markets, the multitude wears them irrespective of fitness, and the fashion from the artistic standpoint is dead. That's true. Again, people wear clothing that is not right for their body type, inappropriate for their age, etc. We've always been like that. We'll always be like that. If a fashion lingers for an indefinite time, accessories for that particular type will multiply, and having established itself as a popular mode, it will extinguish itself in due course of time or be superseded by some other equally popular creation. While there is a constant demand for fashion ideas that are new, they must invariably revolve around the principle of practical merchandising. There you go, capitalism. If American dress designers can only be imbued with the idea that a waist that interferes with the natural movement of the arms and a skirt that makes it impossible for the wearer to step properly are equally inartistic and inelegant, no matter how beautiful their lines or how gorgeous their coloring, there might be hope of a return to the graceful ease and free, unhampered movements of childhood. Again, like she's not talking about anything that is so specific to American dress. The dresses of the courts, and really even the finer dresses, like the day dresses of women, from the 1800s back, were things where you couldn't really lift your arms. Like they had these, like, they wanted to have these sloping shoulders, like I think it's the 1830s. 1840s, the sloping shoulder was like very pretty. So like the way the dresses were the neckline and the arm side, where you connect your sleeves in, were such that it created this lovely line, but like you couldn't raise your arms. It was ridiculous. During Queen Elizabeth's rule, Queen Elizabeth I, you had this like ice cream cone shape that was popular. And if you look at corsets of the time, they're very long and they come down into this like, I don't know, this sort of pointiness in the front, and they're trying to create this like cone shaped body. Children wore these corsets, from the time they were toddlers on. They had sort of soft corsets, and then they grew into, as probably preteens, girls were wearing like very structured corsets. So like none of this is new. Try anybody. Now the working class, kind of a different story. Working class kind of, they did dress for comfort and the ability to do their job. But women who, had the ability to sit around all day in a fashion, they definitely were at the whims of these looks. And that's nothing new. It has been going on forever. In fact, women's work, the first 20,000 years, really starts off with this discussion of these thread skirts. And to me, I guess what was being described, it was fibers, spun fibers perhaps, in like on a girdle. And what they reminded me of was like really skimpy hula skirts. You think about like the traditional, like, stereotyped hula skirt, that's like a waistband with just strings of like raffia. Well, think about something like that. All of the raffia is gone except for just a few bits and pieces. These were these string skirts that women made or created or something. And I mean, we're talking like prehistory. These things have been discovered in quite a few places. And the author of that book, and I'm totally blanking on her name, the book is upstairs on my bedside table. She's looked at a whole bunch of different cultures, and even the folk costumes of certain areas and cultures can kind of harken back to these like string aprons or string skirts. And essentially the guess, the hypothesis is that these skirts were made for like a little bit of movement, and they were not really, they really didn't preserve any modesty, but they kind of brought the eye to the hips and the rear end, etc. So they probably were something that was about beautifying and attracting men. And so, I mean, women have been, a slave to fashion since prehistory. And I guess perhaps those string skirts are not uncomfortable necessarily, but they're certainly not like keeping you warm or preserving your modesty. So they're kind of useless. Anyway, I digress. Okay. Let's see. The unhampered movements of childhood. Nor is it artistic or in good taste to cut ordinary skirts so short that they resemble those used for mountain climbing in Switzerland or deer hunting in the Adirondacks. So if your skirts need to be short to do physical activities, my gosh, don't wear that like anywhere else that somebody might see you. A fashion designer, therefore, whose composition interferes with the natural movement of the body and whose sense of the eternal fitness of costume is untrustworthy, cannot possibly produce artistic results in models. And it has also been demonstrated to the desolation of people with artistic sensibilities that fashion designers cannot depend upon the shoemaking industry nor the stocking manufacturers to fill artistically the gap left by a skirt that is too short. So the shoemakers and the stocking people are not going to address your cankles. So make your skirt longer, ladies, is what she's saying. And this is another little poem. She does not have a reference for it, but long waist or short waist, your vanity to flatter. Long sleeves or short sleeves, does it really matter? Long skirts or short skirts, at knee or on the ground. High neck or low neck, fashion makes the world go round. The war, the automobile, and the world of sports all contributed to costumes of post-war days. And remember, this is post-World War I. And all periods of dress were represented in the designs. With these varied influences of the past was the distinctly modern note given by the rapidly increasing American influence. The designs borrowed from men's fashions were an after effect of the war, and designers were very ingenious in making use of tailored detail even in formal costumes. These mannish themes were particularly attractive in the ensemble type and were largely exploited. Armistice fashions demanded conservation of quantity, but not quality, so there were many gold embroidered gowns and luxurious fur coats for formal wear. Okay, so you can only have a couple of gowns versus a whole closet full, so might as well put some fur and gold on them. There was so little material used in the dresses that some of them were said to have no sleeves, no backs, no fronts, and very little skirt. Well, I mean, come on, she just described hot pants and go-go boots. The fashions were fearlessly frank. One costume worn at a bohemian house party was described as a low-necked grape leaf. From the gracious frivolities of the summer of 1914, 4 years of war saw our raiment transformed to the scantiest of necessities. At least there could be no question about the scantiness. So here is a photograph from 1924, and I think this lady is lovely. It says youthful design. So I think this is very pretty. Like she's got a skirt with little ruffles. Just to, I guess give it some floof and some volume. For the duration of the war, all skirts were shoe top length. In fact, shoes were made with higher tops, boasting many buttons, as there must be no space of hosiery showing between the skirt hem and the top of the shoe. The Oxford, which had been considered a summer shoe for several seasons, was so comfortable for housewear that many women continued to its use during the winter months by adding spats of gray or fawn or black for outdoor wear. So I guess if we think of like saddle Oxfords that were very popular in the 50s, they were again popular in the 70s. I wore saddle Oxfords as a child. My mom wore saddle Oxfords as a child. I'm thinking that's where that comes from, an Oxford type shoe, and then the spats are over it, but then that turns into just an all-in-one design in the 20th century. That's my guess. And the flapper wore her galoshes unfastened, and they flapped to her heart's content. But with the arrival of the startlingly short skirt, a number of new fashion interests developed. It was a period of striking effects, strong colors, and luxurious fabrics, with the youth note incorporated in every essential part. Bobbed hair was one of the innovations, as was an increasing interest in shoes and hose. It is gratifying to note that although the American women went to the extreme limit in the matter of short skirts and sleeveless blouses, they declined to meet the demand of Paris for a stockingless mode. Women were still wearing stockings through the 70s, and until not that long ago, and lots of women still wear stockings, but I would say the stockingless mode probably, came up in the late 60s probably. I think it was probably pretty scandalous if you were over a certain age not to wear hosiery, of some sort, or cover your legs up, definitely until probably the 60s. Real quick, let's look at a couple of pictures. We've got some more. It looks like this might also be a photograph. These are lace evening gowns, 1924. And this looks very 1920s. And these women have bobbed hair. They have the headbands, the dropped waist. You can see her ankles. Oh, her scandalous ankles. You got the sleeveless. Very, very flapper. And then these are 4 types of dresses, or I guess this one is kind of an outerwear. 1925. I think these are also very 1920s sort of ubiquitous. I mean, look at those, that skinny sort of like, boyish body that women are trying to achieve. Now this is interesting. This one is got like, I don't know how well you can see this, but it's got like this big poofy collar thing. And it looks like sort of a cocoon coat kind of thing. And then I've got one more. These are street costume and evening gown. Also very 1920s. This is 1926. So you can see the hair has gotten even shorter. You've got that like big dip in the back on the evening gown. This really interesting sash kind of situation, looks like. Kind of like an obi, from a kimono. And then the other woman, I guess, is supposed to be streetwear. That is scandalous. I mean, look, you can see her whole dang leg there. All right. So American women, despite being nearly naked, they declined to meet the demand for stockingless mode. This situation was met in true American fashion by the wearing of flesh-colored hose, which gave one rather a shock until he saw that they were really truly stockings. In fact, hosiery bloomed in a very riot of transparency and color. From the flesh pastel tints to orange and rose gray, 66 shades were offered for Milady's selection. Because of the extremely short skirts, much attention was paid to garters. Many wore their stockings rolled, but when garters were worn, they were very elaborate and were considered as a matching accessory. Decorative suspenders, made very similar to those intended for masculine wear, were another innovation. Gloria Swanson wore a very tailored pair to hold her sports skirt in place in one of her screen pictures. Fashions of the motion picture world gained much attention about this time, and the costumes of the Greek play Lysistrata influenced the classic effect of draperies in the 1919 silhouette. A few designers tried to reintroduce a wired panier effect along with the robe-de-style dress for formal occasions. Whether artificially stiffened or not, these skirts were many yards wide, 12 yards being not unusual. Some were made with 3 flounces, others with the jupe tonneau or barrel effect. I'm assuming that's just kind of a... although every effort was made to exploit them, and they were worn to some extent by young and old, they did not meet with general approval, so the movement failed as a major fashion trend. There was an attempt made to induce women to wear knickerbockers, so like breeches. They would end at the knee. I actually had a pair in middle school. My saddlebred sweater, cable knit sweater, my corduroy knickerbockers, and argyle socks. I was a happening child in the 80s. That is sarcasm, by the way. So knickerbockers, not only for sports and outerwear in the country, but for business. This also met with scant approval. Much attention was paid to handbags and other accessories. The handbag had gradually increased in size until now one could carry her entire wardrobe without crushing, and after having undergone many changes in shape, the underarm bag now superseded the hanging variety that had been carried swinging from the arm. Trimmings of all kinds, rows of bandings and braid, and insertions of knitted wool were extensively used. Ribbons of every width and color were used in every conceivable way for sashes, handmade trimmings, and ribbon flowers. Every woman wore a corsage of artificial or handmade ribbon flowers on her evening dress, and a boutonniere for her tailored suit or to decorate her fur neckpiece. There was much jet and colored bead trimming used on dresses, many dresses being beaded over entirely in an elaborate pattern. Also, there were many sequin patterned robes in both black and colors. Blouses went Russian because of the influence of the ballet russe, with its Bakst, B-A-K-S-T, designs. The new neckline of 1923 was the bateau effect, which was very popular for some time. So bateau or like is like a wide, like boat neck look. They used scallops as a trimming. These have a decided charm and accomplish things that are very effective, glorifying edges that otherwise would be sunken in oblivion. I have to say, I do love a scalloped edge, a scalloped hemline. Absolutely lovely. The cape as an outer garment made its impression on the mode and was seen in varying shapes and lengths and in different fabrics, suiting itself to all occasions. This period also saw the beginning of the reign of the fur coat and huge muffs made of velvet and other fabrics as well as those of fur. The evolution of the hat, from the time when Eve wore a chaplet of leaves for her flowing tresses to the tight cloche that enveloped the shingled head of the modern woman of this period, is a very interesting phase of fashion lore. The shingled head. If you don't know much about hairdressing, hairstyling, shingled hair is basically like the way little boys usually get their hair cut. You know, it's just sort of like shingles, almost like short. So that's pretty funny. During these countless centuries, headgear has been an all-absorbing item of interest and a topic of conversation for all women. The French peasant type of beret of 1926 was one of the least interesting developments. Carrie Hall, she may be real bland talking about quilts, but she has some thoughts about fashion. As a further concession to this sexless period, an Italian artist designed a cheap but attractive garment which could be worn by either men or women, which he called tuta, T-U-T-A. According to an article in a German newspaper of contemporary date, a great many people of Florence were wearing the costume. I wonder what on earth this looked like. At a ball given by the Countess Ruccelli in her palace, all the guests wore tuta. This costume could be made by an ordinary seamstress. It allowed freedom of movement and was entirely hygienic. You know, it's like they talk about hygienic. I'm like, I mean, are some of these outfits like giving people, I don't know, STIs or something? Like, or I mean, I know what they talk about, the corsets like squeezing women so they couldn't breathe. Like, I get that being healthful, but I don't know. To me, hygienic is like wearing gloves when you have to touch dirty stuff. Like, I don't understand this whole hygienic outfits. I've never understood that. Anyway, however, nothing was said about its beauty or grace, but it appears that the wearers intended it to be a protest against the tyranny of fashion. So there, she's really not said what a tuta is. I'm gonna have to look and see what a tuta looks like. The adoption of the 19th Amendment in 1920 led to all sorts of advice and suggestions, serious, comic, and foolish, regarding women's dress when she made her appearance at the polls. It was asserted that in the smaller towns, the women were bound to dress up when they went to cast their first votes, making, as it were, an event of the first vote, like celebrating the coming of age. They wore smart attire and otherwise created a festive occasion. Elaborate simplicity, with the skirt fullness variously posed, identified the silhouette of 1925. When the short dress reached its high mark of exposure and the waistline tobogganed downward, the skirt became little more than a scant flounce. A dimple in the knee was much more to be desired than one in the cheek. In 1926, fashion, having satisfied herself that she could go no higher, they began adding panels and other dripping draperies that fell over the hemline of the skirt and gave an irregular effect of added length. So that's that sort of drapey, jaggedy looking like handkerchief hemlines. Another innovation was the transformation dress, which consisted of a satin slip over which might be worn a coat of the same satin, thus forming a street dress. Well, now transformation dresses today are interesting because I don't know if you've seen these or if you've been to a wedding in recent years, a lot of brides are choosing to let their bridesmaids decide, what dress would best fit their body style, body size, body type, and just dictating what color the dress may be. So I've seen a lot of women will go for this transformation dress, which is basically like a wrap dress sort of thing where you can tie it all up so it's strapless. You can make it like a halter. You can do all kinds of things with this dress. So, it appears that kind of sensibility has been around quite a while. A soft tunic worn over the same foundation slip made of it a dress suitable for afternoon bridge parties, while a full flounced, billowy tulle overdress transformed it into a dinner or dance frock. This was supposed to be a boon to the businesswoman, a sort of business and then out to dinner dress. Capsule wardrobes, anybody? I mean, I follow a few, a couple of independent fashion company or pattern design companies that sell their patterns with the attitude that you can create a capsule wardrobe. So, for instance, if you're traveling, you'd want like this top and this pants and then this jacket, which would, make like your daytime, like kind of business wear. And then you could take the top and pair it with jeans, and then you have like a casual look, or you could pair it with a skirt, or the jacket over a little black dress then becomes like a evening wear, like that capsule wardrobe stuff. There are a lot of women that, who travel a lot for business, that do that. And I think that's brilliant. I know if I traveled a lot, I would probably think about that too. So that is the end of that chapter. Now I know it's right at 4, but I want to know what the tuta looks like. So let's find out if I can find a link or something that, make sure I save my spot here. Next Monday, we will be looking at the 20th century, 1926 to 1936. So she's going to get up to date with her time, and I'm sure she's got lots to say. And then she gets into just some general fashion stuff, because she goes from the decades to specific topics like accessories. Let's see, tuta, Italian fashion. Ah, the tuta. Okay. It's a jumpsuit. Let's see. Okay. So this is a pattern for the Taglio della Tuta. Let me share my screen. This is crazy looking. It looks exactly like the jumpsuit that I love to wear. You can see it's got the collar here. It looks like it's got some pockets. There's a belt, but otherwise it's just like a jumpsuit. That's pretty brilliant, actually. How to cut out the tuta. Oh yeah, look at this thing. And there's a picture of it from 1920 in the Museum of Tissu in Prato near Florence. It is an ugly thing, but I'm all about it. Was there any precedent by the jumpsuit? Yeah, bib overalls. Combination underwear. Yeah, aviation flight suits. Okay, so there wasn't really anything like it. Oh, here's another one. Oh, this one looks like, let's see. Oh, this is the person made this, that owns this blog. Looks like Liz Haywood might be her name. Here's the toile of the jumpsuit. I ran out of fabric for the gusset and had to use something else. So that looks like there's this gusset in the crotch. Also very nice for, being able to like move around. You can kick and squat. Oh boy, interesting. Here, let me provide that link. So if you would like to read more about the tuta, I had lots of links today. All right, so there we go. All right, you guys, we are right at after 4. So I'm going to hit the road. Got errands to run. Um, have a wonderful weekend. I hope that you've got nice weather in your area. I know, Robin, you were asking for rain, so hopefully you have a nice gentle rain, a nice cooling gentle rain. No buckets. Nobody likes buckets of rain. And I hope you guys get something fun this weekend. You know, I maybe will do a little sewing outside. That's always nice. Yeah, so just a reminder, I will be here next Monday, but then I'm gone for 2 weeks. So there will not be a stream next Thursday, nor the following Monday and Thursday, and then I'll be back. So, thanks, Robin. Yeah, I hope the rest of your day's great too, and you have a fun weekend. So, and good blessings to Druid. Like I told you, she was dealing with some stuff today. She had to take care of things, so I told her good vibes for no hassle, and that your day goes by well. So have a great weekend. Love you guys. I couldn't do this without you. I wouldn't do this without you. So I will see you on Monday. Take care. Mwah!